You've all had king crab. It doesn't matter if you haven't eaten it. I got a job as a crabber today. It's not just king crabs that are free to eat. The boss is also kind every day. I never use 96, and you only work 1 month a year. I can walk away with $100,000. I only work 20 hours a day, and a $5 million death insurance policy for you. You don't have to sign up for it. The episode begins with Nathan singing. His crew were making preparations for the sea. It is now 12 days since the crab season began. Everyone on the Titan was smiling, because Captain Anderson has finally returned with Kino. The Titan went to sea again after a series of setbacks. Dutch Harbor 212-mile Golden King Crab Farm. Clark is on the phone with his wife. No big deal, just asking when Clark's going to be back. And he's worried about Clark and all that. Lao Bai's last return to Hong Kong was also fruitful. I managed to get my quota of Golden King crabs. The price is about $10 a pound. The adult size is about 8 pounds. They sell for about $70, 80 each. White got a total of $60,000 quota. A total of 40 crab pots were released. The site is a deep trench 330 meters below the sea floor. The crew dressed up while we talked. Clark throws an anchor hook from the deck. Rotate slowly with the take-up machine. Old White sipped his coffee leisurely. The crab pot harvest was modest. Old White Sea quickly turned around to observe. There were about 11 of them dumped on the sorting machine. It's not much, but at least there are crabs. The next cage is about here. The depth is a little deeper, about 600 meters. When I pulled it out, I saw a lot more crabs. It sells for $1,500 when it's dumped in a sorting machine. Old White is happy to see this cage. It's bigger than the crew's face. I'm done with these test cages. This is where White is going to throw it. The crew is below preparing for the launch. Clark came to the captain's room to consult with the Old White. Clark feels safest around 600 meters. His advice is to keep throwing cages in the ditch. This view is also agreed with Lao Bai. The only downside is not much intelligence. A massive launch could be a dead end, but Old White is happy to take a gamble. Get Clark safe and ready to go. There's still a quota of $55,000 left after the last catch. It wasn't long before the crew packed the crab pots. Lift the extension cord and tie the crab pot. 125 miles southeast of the Titan. Anderson demonstrated the downdrift to the crew, to the amazement of the crew. But the waves are bigger in Anderson. Hit the Titan like you're dying. Anderson said the wave could hit the window. It should be a dozen meters high. After chatting with the crew, the waves have almost calmed down. The crew is ready to go to work. After the crew leaves, Anderson said he had intended to deliver the goods in 4 days, but he had an appointment at the factory. Suddenly announced that they would stop in 2 days, because he only verbally agreed with the factory. Now there's nothing he can do about stopping himself early. If we don't deliver the crabs ahead of time, Anderson and the crew are likely to lose their jobs. Anderson owns so few shares after all. You have to do what the big shareholders say. He can only pray for the blessing of the crab god. This time Anderson intends to drop at a depth of 210 meters. Gave the crew a rundown on the plan. Let everyone be sure to be safe. The crew then went back to work. First, we need to scoop up the test cage we dropped earlier. The crew cast the anchor hook accurately. Take up machine, slowly force. Anderson's heart also can't help but tense up. The deep sea crab pot is slowly pulled up. On board a look at why there is no. This cage doesn't even work with a sorter anyway. Anderson quipped that it wasn't enough for himself. With the crabs out, the crew is just about to throw. Suddenly a big wave gave the crew a chill. Then another wave hit, and the crew were fine. But the elevator didn't like it. Immediately shake the crab pot down to teach the waves a lesson. Anderson hurried and told the crew to throw the rope first. At first the crew didn't get it. Anderson quickly threw the float down. An avatar that gives Anderson gas in an emergency. The crew down below also scolded Anderson. And that's what Anderson said. Let's get the crew back and wait for the waves to calm down. After all, there will always be time to squeeze. If you're dead, you're dead. Anderson said he just lost his head. So busy with time that you forget the danger. 90 miles north on the Wizard. Their harvest is as good as the Titan's ever been. On the sorting machine, I counted only 2. Ross's skills are as bad as ever. Even the crew teased Ross about being unreliable. Captain Ross had to send a lonely telegram. This is what Ross sees. 18,000 pounds quota. It's not going to be done until the end of the year. Had to think of a desperate way. He's going to this place. It's an underwater abyss called a black hole. Rose had heard his brother speak of this place. This black hole can be up to 1,000 meters deep. Not that there's anything in between, but there are often large swarms of crabs around. It's a test of the captain's position. Then Rose called his brother. Told him he was going to the black hole. Keith over there is going to freak out. After all, Ross used to beat up his lieutenants. I'm just a half-assed captain. I don't want my brother to go anyway. C said, but brother. Had to promise brother not to go to the black hole side. Rose said he had guessed it. He said he was just informing his brother. I wasn't going to talk to Keith about it. The plan was then told to the crew. Have them throw the cage at the buzzer. After the assignment, Ross began to turn, ready to throw around the edge of the black hole. The result is that they don't cooperate enough. The buzzer rang 3 times before the crab pot was dropped. Seeing this, Rose had no choice but to swear a few words. Then the ship began to turn. How the crew scoop it up as they approach. Ross is a straight 360-degree turn. Keith would have cursed himself for losing a crab pot. Meanwhile, the crab pot is slowly sinking into the deep ditch. Luckily, Ross isn't too bad with a boat. The crew successfully hooked the rope before the crab pot sank. With the power of the take-up machine, the crab pot was successfully rescued. Ross was afraid the crew would make any more trouble. He solemnly repeated the precautions. With the previous trial and error, the crew heard the noise and dropped the crab pot. Let's just hope Ross is right. 106 miles southwest of the thief. The Nathan brothers were chatting there. Says this ocean used to come here. There should be a golden crab or something. Their crab pot is about 320 meters. Nathan said they're running out of time to crab. This time we're going to hit our quota of 11,000 pounds. Then hurry back to the port to unload, whether they're under a lot of pressure or not. There's a lot of pressure in the tank anyway. There's a lot of pressure in the sea, and the crew is ready to go. The anchor hook shot out at the word. The take-up machine began to turn. Nathan could not help but be nervous. Crab pot boarding is a good harvest. It wasn't just the crew that cheered this time. The Lena sons couldn't hide their surprise either. The sorting machine was filled with the echo of dollars. Count 14, and that got Nathan dancing even more. As the take-up machine turns again, Nathan was even more delighted. The camera turns to another cage full of gold. Get on the sorting machine. These crabs can barely hold one hand. The number of 31 made Nathan's mind open. Even the crew couldn't stop cheering. Then it was full again. It's like there's no end to the crabs in this precious land. Nathan saw this and sat straight back on the bench. I just got back, and there's something wrong with the cargo hold. A closer look at the water circulation in the warehouse is blocked. Nathan quickly called his brother to see what was going on. Then Nathan explained that the water circulation system was blocked. Can cause crabs to sit in sewage. Over time, all the crabs will die, and it's not reparable at sea. If it's totally broken, half a month's work will be for nothing. By this time, his brother Neil had begun to examine the machine. Neil said the inside of the machine was dirty. I think a little crab died in there. Neil will report back as soon as he's done. And the reporting was not so bad. The machine will last another 2 or 3 days. Enough time for Nathan to get back to port after catching crabs. Nathan had nothing to worry about when he heard that, and the crew went on with their work. Nathan has at most 1,800 crabs left on his quota. There's nothing to worry about if nothing goes wrong. Northwest, 50 miles west. The crew hasn't tied all the ropes yet. Old White will drop the crab pot to 660 meters this time. That's why the crew is still lengthening the crab pot line. White said it was Clark's idea. I was supposed to drop it at 580 meters. Took Clark's advice to temporarily increase the length. And then I heard Clark say the same thing. Old White again picked up the conversation. He said Clark was trying to find the crab's lair. I was just trying to keep it steady at 580 meters. Just raise the stakes after what Clark said. But it's also harder to salvage. So it's a pretty risky bet. Then the crew began throwing crab pots. Let's hope White wins this one. The picture came to the Titan. Anderson went from meeting to meeting with the crew. Other captains can't fly it once a year. Anderson did it 3 times in one season. Focus on 3 safety, safety, safety. After the meeting, Anderson's face was tired. Sat down in the captain's cabin and sighed. The crew stood by the ship, ready to go. The crew threw a power spear rope. Take-up machine began to slowly exert force. Anderson's heartstrings tightened. Crab pot boarding is a good harvest. As the crabs are dumped out, Anderson's strained heartstrings were finally released. A total of 47 adult male crabs were picked up. Anderson's smile finally broke down. With the harvest, the wind and waves are getting stronger. Before Anderson finds out, a huge wave hit the deck. Anderson hurried to ask the crew if anything was wrong. Fortunately, this wave is a little weak. The crew were just wet with their clothes on. After changing their clothes, the crew went back to work. Rotate slowly with the take-up machine. Another big pot full of crabs was brought up. It's like a waterfall of crabs. Anderson is very happy. Then he prepared to drop it again. Strike while the iron is hot to harvest. 116 miles northwest. Northwest. The crew is ready for the salvage. Old White reminds everyone's safety first. The top bed is about to begin. Made it home to hold the baby. Failed to disband the fleet in place. Then the crew threw a spear. The take-up machine began to turn slowly. It took a long time for the crab pot to be pulled up, but the crabs didn't disappoint. Full of gold tadpoles look like gold. Looks like Old White won the bet. This thing looks the same in the dark. I counted 58 crabs in the basket. The take-up machine turns again. Another big pot full of crabs on board. The sorter was covered in golden yellow. The Old White in the captain's room was crazy with joy. Test cage, fishing complete. Then the crab pot fell into the abyss. 144 miles northeast of the Wizard. Rose's heartstrings tightened now. He was afraid of the crab pot falling into the pit. The crew then cast the anchor. Take-up machine slowly force. Of course, the harvest will live up to expectations. Rose's sadness eased. The fall of the crab echoes like a beautiful knife. After careful examination, there are 78 animals in this cage. But Rose soon stopped laughing. Crab pots are empty where they should be. Ross had to ask the crew to remove the ground hook. The crew threw the thing into the sea. Ross is going to take the boat around. See if you can get the crab pot in the gutter. After a pause, the take-up machine began to exert force. Fortunately, the hook managed to catch the crab pot. As a result, the crab pot was successfully pulled up. The crab harvest is also quite good. Ross managed to get out of trouble, but it's not going to be easy on Rogue. There are only 2 baby crabs in the crab pot. Not even a hair on the next boat. This way, Titan, you can't even pull the crab pot on the boat. Anyway, Anderson is the telegraph again. Return to the Witcher. The harvest here lasted all day. Rose informed his brother of the situation. Keith didn't say anything else, just constantly complimenting Ross. Okay, that's the end of this video. There's one last episode of Crab season left. Do you want to know what happened next?